requires radical change in the productive base of the South African economy. It also requires changing the patterns of participation by previously disadvantaged individuals in the economy. Following government's announcement that it will create 100 black industrialists over the medium term to bring about economic transformation, 27 black industrialists have been supported since the inception of the program, 9 of which were supported in this quarter. Government support resulted in a total projected private sector investment of 956 million rand, while 1,053 jobs are projected to be established. Additionally, the Industrial Development Corporation, the IDC, gross funding for black industrialists amounted to 4.5 billion rand from quarter 1 of 2015 financial year to quarter 3 of 2016-17 financial year. On investment, in an effort to boost confidence levels, government through Invest South Africa has identified 40 high-impact projects that are ready for implementation within the next 2 years. Support from the Department of Trade and Industry attracted 4 billion rand in private sector investment with the potential to save and create approximately 3.6 thousand jobs in the September-December 27 quarter. The Dube Trade Port attracted 1.3 billion rand of private sector investment, while the OR Tambo International Airport SEZ attracted 260 million rand in private sector investment. Economic diplomacy initiatives undertaken yielded increased sales of manufactured value-added exports of 247 million rand, which brings the cumulative total for the year to 4.1 billion rand. Foreign direct investment confirms that South Africa remains a preferred investment destination. The third quarter additions to the pipeline represent potential FDI of 4.5 billion rand, particularly in the energy and chemical sector. This brings the total potential FDI to 34.8 billion rand. Officials of government are working extensively to move these potential investments from pipeline to actual in. Our President Joe Zuma, will launch the Invest South Africa National One-Stop Shop tomorrow, Friday the 17th of March, at the DTI campus here in Pretoria in Sunnyside. Small business development. As part of implementing the 30% set-aside of total procurement expenditure for SMMEs, National Treasury has reviewed the Preferential Procurement Policy Framework Act regulations and gazetted amendments in January 2017, as we know. In the reporting quarter, the Department of Small Business Development supported 1,388 township enterprises and 48 cooperatives through incentives. National and provincial government are collaborating to revitalize local industrial parks so as to support existing businesses and to attract new businesses. As already, the Komani Industrial Park in Eastern Cape accommodates 30 companies and employs 555 people, while in Posabelo in Free State, it supports the livelihoods of about 10,000 people. Agriculture and rural development. While prolonged drought conditions since 2014 has started to taper in the fourth quarter of 2016, as rainfall brought new hope to our economy, the impact will take a few months. The recent outbreak of the fall armyworm in Limpopo poses a new risk to crops. During the quarter, 374,299 hectares of underutilized land were cultivated on farms under the Recapitalization and Development Program. Despite the drought, there was a 50% achievement of the target for food production as compared to the previous 3 quarters. 2,044,073 people benefited from the food security initiatives including those that were fed at community nutrition development centers. The Department of Social Development procured produce from 43 local cooperatives at 1.6 million rand, in line with 75% of local procurement proposals. 6,784,179 learners from 10,300 primary and secondary schools benefited from the National Nutrition Program. 5,408 service providers, 1,142 community-based cooperatives, 3,102 SMMEs, and 1,154 retail wholesalers have been contracted to supply food products to schools. 541,121 youth and 291,304 women benefited from the interventions implemented in the rural areas in this quarter. On infrastructure, on energy, 46,382 households were connected to the grid or micro-scheme electricity, and 2,106 households were connected to off-grid technology. Furthermore, 141,191 rural indigent households gain access to free basic electricity. Construction of Mwabe Integrated Energy Center has been completed. The Department of Energy finalized the procurement of 31,100 solar home systems for installation. Installation will commence in the fourth quarter with the annual target of 20,000. Government has continued the rollout of Independent Power Producer Program with the following achievements: unlocking 201 billion rand from renewable IPP program. The renewables are now supplying 3,175,000 megawatts of electricity to the grid. The project information memorandum for the gas IPP has been completed, with the request for proposals to be issued before the end of this financial year, and 900 megawatts was procured from the coal IPP. Accelerated school infrastructure delivery. In eradicating infrastructure backlog in rural schools, one school's grant was completed, which was funded through the Accelerated School Infrastructure Delivery Initiative. 389 schools gained access to water, 57 schools gained access to electricity, 157 schools were provided with decent sanitation. In addition, the following were allocated to implementing agencies: 293 school building projects, 1959 school water projects, 535 electricity projects, and 585 sanitation projects. Health infrastructure. Progress in eradicating infrastructure backlogs in health facilities include progress in the maintenance of 70 clinics and community health centers, 18 hospitals and 67 health facilities in the districts where the national health insurance is being piloted. The construction of 3 primary health care centers and 3 community care centers was completed, and the construction of 4 community health centers is also in progress. Water and sanitation. 29,626 households gain access to piped water during the quarter that is underway. The construction of a Ngoha water treatment works and the Kalahari East to Mia pipeline has been completed. The Jozini Pongola Port and Harib Dam are in the final stages of construction. In addition, 98 water development and 51 sanitation projects have been completed. 611,360 households gain access to sanitation services, and 20,599 households were served through the Rural Household Infrastructure Grant to eradicate sanitation backlogs. 1,405 buckets were replaced, with adequate sanitation services in the formerly established settlements. Education. By the end of November 2016, 89%, that is 4,107 of the 4,612 Funza Lushaka graduates eligible for placement in 2016 had been placed in schools, which is a 2% improvement from the previous quarter and 4% above the annual target. The South African Council of Educators was able to increase the number of educators signed up for participation in the continuing professional teacher development management system to a total of 6,572 educators. Since the implementation of the National Students Financial Aid Scheme recovery strategy, collections per month has increased as a result of the various initiatives, and to date 268.4 million rand has been collected against the annual target of 285 million rand. The revised funding framework for universities has been finalized and will be consulted with the university sector before it is published. 14,077 artisans have been certified by the National Artisan Moderation Body. Health again. Prevention is the cornerstone of the public sector efforts to combat HIV and AIDS. As part of the HIV counseling and testing services, a total of 3,022 and 98,000 clients were tested for HIV against the quota target of 2,500. 221,000 male condoms and 6,000 female condoms were distributed against the third quarter targets of 150,000 and 4,500 respectively. 155,188 medical male circumcisions were performed against the quarterly target of 250,000. The TB new client treatment success rate was 84.2%, exceeding the third quarter target of 84%. In the third quarter, 66.3% of pregnant women visited health facilities before 20 weeks, exceeding the quarter target of 63%. Cabinet approved the establishment of the Committee of Ministers to be chaired by the Minister of Public Service and Administration to consider determinations on stipulated conditions of services such as annual salary adjustments, salary scales and levels, performance bonuses, pay incentives and pension benefits. Cabinet also approved that a government negotiations implementation protocol be developed to ensure a transparent intergovernmental process with appropriate participation. This will create an effective structure to align employees' conditions of service in different sectors of the public service and to ensure that the budgetary and broader economic implications are taken into account when adjustments are considered. Government's program of action has played a significant role in the GDP growth as reflected in the GDP figures released by States SA. In support of the NDP and the country's 9-point plan, which outlines specific interventions for growing and transforming the economy, creating jobs and attracting investment. The largest positive contributors have been trade, catering and accommodation industry, as well as finance, real estate, business services, which increased by 2.1 and 1.6% respectively. Implementation of government programs. Cabinet joins the Deputy President Ramaphosa in welcoming the full endorsement of the minimum wage agreement that was agreed to by Labour, Government and Business under the auspices of NEDLEC Committee of Principals. This endorsement is a very important milestone in the process of making the national minimum wage a reality, which will reverse the phenomenon of the working poor and allow employees to provide for the daily needs of their families. It also extends the social net to the most vulnerable in our society and helps us build a more inclusive society. Government is securing the credibility of qualifications and higher education system. The announcement by the Minister of Higher Education and Training on action to be taken against holders of fake qualifications, including prosecuting as well as publicly naming and shaming them, will contribute to ending this growing prevalence of qualification forgeries. At the end of January 2017, a total of 1,276 qualifications, 444 national and 832 foreign qualifications were recorded on SACA's list of misrepresented qualifications, with 78 affidavits completed for handover to the Hawks for investigation and for prosecution. As part of the regulatory move, SACA will register the names of holders of these fake certificates on its website. Cabinet was also pleased that government's National Anti-Corruption Hotline is helping to identify cases of fraud. As of 31st of January this year, 18,778,000 cases had been referred to government departments, and feedback was received on 17,249 cases. 90% of cases had been closed, and 3,600 officials had been found guilty of misconduct between 2004 and January 2017. The majority of public servants are honest and continue to deliver services and do their work. In another major anti-corruption initiative, government has moved to ensure that public service employees are barred from doing business with government departments and other organs of state. The transitional period for public servants to declare their activities under the 2016 Public Service Regulations ended on the 31st of January 2017. By the 1st of February this year, those public servants who were conducting business with organ of state should have resigned from either their businesses or from the public service employment. The Department of Public Service and Administration is currently working on collating information on public service employees who have failed to comply with these new regulations. Once this process is completed, disciplinary processes will be instituted against those who have failed to comply. Issues in the environment. Cabinet deeply regrets the anxiety caused by uncertainty over the payment of social grants to beneficiaries. We are a caring government, and the needs of our people are our priority. We are collectively working towards ensuring that grant beneficiaries are not disadvantaged by these unfortunate events. Cabinet assures South Africans that we are dealing with this matter at the highest levels. We have approved the establishment of the ministerial task team consisting of the ministers in the presidency, social development, finance, science and technology, home affairs, telecommunications and postal services, and state security. The task team has been mandated to address, amongst others, following the Constitutional Court judgment, to consider the proposals with a view to strengthening conditionalities as well as consequence management and identifying appropriate transitional period, ensuring that the payment of grants is effected on the 1st of April 2017, seeking legal advice on the viability of further legal action by the state, especially in addressing unlawful and irregular conduct where necessary, reviewing the conduct of the South African Social Security Agency, especially in relation to its administrative capacity and management, and making a recommendation, developing a contingent plan, and devising a comprehensive institutional payment system for grants. Cabinet warmly acknowledges the dedication and professional service of the South African Police Service, as well as the outpouring of support messages and citizens who mobilized to find baby Siwapiwe Mbambo. This demonstrates that when South Africans work together, we can make a difference in the lives of the most vulnerable. President Zuma had undertaken that government will take visible action to combat crime in the Mhlabuyalingana local municipality in northern Natal, which is causing tension between South Africans and Mozambiques, where he visited last Tuesday. Cabinet joins the President in urging the local communities of Mhlabuyalingana and surrounding municipalities of Mkhanyakude, Hlabisa and Jozini to renew their trust in the police and work together with them to combat cross-border crime, especially car hijackings in that area. National departments, especially police, defense, state security, home affairs, social development, amongst others, will make a strong intervention after the President's visit, working with the provincial government and affected municipalities. While parts of our country have received much-needed rains, with dam levels showing significant improvement, with some even full to capacity, the persistent drought in the Western Cape is dire, even though water-saving strategies are being implemented. Engagements between national and provincial sector departments as well as municipalities are ongoing in an effort to minimize the impact. Water remains a scarce resource in our country, and all water users, domestic and commercial, are urged to continue using water sparingly and efficiently. Cabinet joins President Zuma in congratulating President Nana Addo Akufo-Addo of the Republic of Ghana on the milestone occasion of Ghana's 60th independence anniversary on the 6th March 2017. Cabinet also joined the Minister of Communications in celebrating the South African national winners of the SADC Media Awards. These awards recognize excellence in journalism and encourages media practitioners in member states to cover issues pertaining to the region for the purposes of promoting regional integration and cooperation. The South African media are invited to submit their entries for the 2017 SADC Media Awards competition before the closing day of the 20th March 2017. Cabinet was also briefed on the progress and preparations of the O.R. Tambo Centenary celebrations for 2017 under the theme Life and Legacy of O.R. Tambo. The year-long countrywide program for awareness creation, educational, celebratory, and honoring activities builds up to the fully fledged centenary celebration on the 27th of October 2017 and concludes in early December 2017 with a musical tribute at Mbizana Wild Coast Casino in the Eastern Cape. This year-long national discourse reaffirms the significant role played by President O.R. Tambo in the struggle for liberation and the attainment of freedom and democracy. All national and commemorative days for 2017 will be utilized as platform for the O.R. Tambo Centenary celebrations, and Cabinet calls on all sectors to align their program and content to the theme and objectives of the O.R. Tambo Centenary celebrations. Cabinet congratulated the Minister of Environmental Affairs, Edna Molewa, who will be appointed the first Chancellor of the Sefako Mahato Health Sciences University tomorrow, the 17th of March. Cabinet also commends the 5 young South African scientists nominated by the Academy of Science of South Africa, who join 400 other young scientists from 76 countries selected to participate in this year's 67th Lindau Nobel Laureate meeting in Germany. They are Dr. Hlamulo Makelane from the University of the Western Cape, Frederick Malan, Pretoria University, Funeka Nkosi, Wits University, Retta Peach, Northwest University, and Dr. Mark Williams Wynne from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. This meeting will take place from the 25th to the 30th of June 2017, and 31 laureates are expected to participate. Cabinet also congratulates the all-female team of researchers from the University of Cape Town, along with Gaznas Shabuddin and Sarah Krause, and researchers from Italy who discovered the heart attack gene. This landmark medical discovery has the potential to preventing hundreds of cardiac-related deaths each year. The Department of Sports and Recreation and the South African Revenue Services, they were jointly awarded the Pan-South African Language Board Multilingualism Award. In the government public sector category, they have received this accolade in recognition of their drive to promote multilingualism in South Africa. The successful handover of the Commission chairpersonship of the African Union from Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma to Musa Faki Mahamat of Chad. Cabinet wishes him all the success. Cabinet also congratulated Amajita for their sterling performance at the Under-20 African Cup of Nations in Zambia. They've now reached the semi-finals, and in so doing have secured South Africa's place in the 2017 FIFA Under-20 World Cup to be hosted in South Korea. Cabinet sends condolences to the family and friends of those who lost loved ones in the fires which razed Cape Town's informal settlements, leaving thousands of people displaced. Government has erected 2 marquees to facilitate registration for those who have lost security documents, and 4 halls are accommodating those who have been displaced, where basic necessities such as water, food parcels are being made available. Various government departments have intervened to provide support and services to minimize the impact on communities. Cabinet also thanks aid organizations and all volunteers who were assisting with relief operations in the area. Cabinet also wishes anti-apartheid veteran and icon Winnie Madikizela Mandela well during her stay in hospital, and urges the nation to keep her and her family in their thoughts and prayers at this time. Cabinet also joins the President in wishing struggle stalwart and icon Ahmed Kathrada a speedy recovery from his illness. He is one of the 3 surviving Rivonia trialists, and we urge the nation to keep him and his family in their thoughts and prayers at this time. Thank you.
Minister, thank you very much. I hope colleagues in Cape Town also are ready and preparing questions. Colleagues, I think we'll take it this way. I'm going to go for the first round of questions here in Pretoria, then take follow-ups, then go to Cape Town. Let me see the names now. I'll start with you, and then come to the front, and I will bring that forward.
Good afternoon, Minister Anton Meyer from Pretoria FM. You said now that the ministerial task team has been set up to conduct a review of SASSA, of their actions and their inactions with relation to the payment of social grants. What has the cabinet? Did the cabinet discuss the conduct of Minister Radebe Dlamini with regards to this whole saga around the social grants crisis? And then secondly, did you discuss the recommendations of the ad hoc committee looking into the SABC board, specifically the recommendation that the President should reconsider Minister Faith Mtambi's desirability post as Communications Minister? You said during the previous post-cabinet briefing that you did not discuss it because it wasn't adopted by the report wasn't adopted by Parliament, but that has since been adopted by Parliament. So we'd just like to know if you discussed the recommendations of the SABC report. Thank you.
Thank you. Mamigelo, is that what you wanted to ask?
Yes, I'm covered. Thank you.
What you wanted to ask, I presume. Minister? About the two of us, can I, with your kind permission, take other questions?
My name is Centenary from SABC. My question is on whether the cabinet did discuss the issue with PRASA, because the matter was supposed to start before Congress as of today.
Thank you.
Afternoon, Minister. My name is Masichala Dlamini. I'm from M7. I just wanted to find out if Cabinet is maybe worried about the developments in the Constitutional Court.
Thank you. Colleagues, let's allow the Minister to respond.
The Cabinet did not discuss specifically the conduct of the Minister of Social Development, as I've indicated. At the last meeting of the Joint Committees of Cabinet last Wednesday, that's when the decision was taken to establish this ministerial task team that has been given the mandate to look at all the issues around the issue of the social grants. So it will be the deliberations of this task team that will serve in the Cabinet, looking at all the matters that have been mandated to do. On the issue of SABC, that matter did not come before Cabinet yesterday. As you know, that those matters have been in Parliament, and the last time that it was discussed was the day before yesterday, when the interim board was being approved by the National Assembly. And I'm sure the report of the National Assembly, where appropriate, will be sent to government, and in this instance of your question, to the President. The matter of PRASA did not arise at Cabinet yesterday. The Concord developments were not discussed because, as you know, we're having the meeting of Cabinet the whole day, while the deliberations at the Constitutional Courts were also happening simultaneously.
Thank you, Minister. Let me cross over to Cape Town. Cape Town, do we have questions?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we'll take 5 questions for the Star, starting with Linda.
Good morning, Minister. Linda Ginsel from Business Day. Just on the SASSA matter, your statement, you say seek legal advice. Now, what actually does that relate to? I mean, are there any suspicions about unlawful and irregular conduct? And if you could perhaps elaborate on where that possibly could lie. And also, your view, please, Minister, on Cabinet's responsibility for this crisis itself, because whereas the Minister of Social Development obviously has accountability, she is accountable to Cabinet. Throughout this long period from 2014 until now, what has Cabinet done to hold the Minister to account? Thanks. Paul?
Good day, Minister. Paul Beckyard from Bloomberg. Yeah, just to follow on my learned colleague Linda's question there. You see, seek on the viability of further legal action by the state. The state hasn't taken any legal action. It's from what I can see, it's been respondent to a number of cases. So, just what exactly do you mean by that? Secondly, you talk about developing a comprehensive institutionalized payment system for grants. Does that mean that you're looking at, I don't know, possibly nationalizing possible CPS? Could you do that? So those 2 questions for the time being. Thank you.
Janet? Janet Hurd, Media 24. My questions have been partially answered, but just to elaborate on that, if you could be also more specific about the ministerial task team. I know it says that we will obviously discuss after the Constitutional Court decision, but the nation is seized by this matter. Is there not an urgent meeting that is taking place irrespective of it? And if so, can you give some more details? And then secondly, I just want a bit of clarity about some of these figures that are thrown around. I'm a little bit unclear. Are they all, unless mentioned, are they all from the fourth quarter, relating to the fourth quarter? Thanks, because otherwise it's hard to sort of know how to cover them. Thanks. Andisiwe?
Andisiwe Makilana from City Press. Minister, also my question is around SASSA. As the convener of this interministerial task team, are you able to say this SASSA crisis is a crisis, or is it an invention of the media and the opposition parties, as we have heard from ANC leaders? And secondly, also, do you have time frames for the work that you're going to be doing as a task team? And can I also ask you, Minister, about the Commonwealth Games in Durban? We know they're no longer happening, but a few months ago in this room, you told us very confidently that they will be bringing jobs, they will be bringing so much revenue to South Africa and so on. At what stage did the cabinet realize that, I don't know if it came to cabinet afterwards, did you realize that this is not going to work for South Africans? Because we're very insistent that it is going to do all these things. Thank you.
Last one for this one, Marianne.
Marianne Merton, Daily Maverick. Covered by my colleagues on the SASSA-related questions. Would you please expand and perhaps explain and clarify a little bit further on 1.30 on page 5? Cabinet approved the establishment of the Committee of Ministers, considering determinations, conditions of service, etc., etc., etc. Does that relate to public servants? Because elected public representatives, office bearers, there's an independent commission already on that. And again, issues around time frames, and how does this link up to steps that public service and administration is now doing in order to ensure that no public servant actually does business with the state? Thank you.
That's it from Cape Town, Chair.
Thank you, Lisa. We'll give over to the Minister to respond.
Thanks. On the SASSA matters, maybe just to give the context as well. As I've said, this team was established last week, Wednesday, and we've had about 3 meetings thus far. But at an appropriate time, we'll be able to give you more details of the work of this task team as a collective, especially after the judgment of the Constitutional Court, which is being awaited as we speak. I do not know when it will come. But the advice that we're seeking, because when we were appointed, there were a lot of things that were happening, including the talks between SASSA and CPS. So our concern at that time was to make sure that we need to minimize all the negative things that had happened in terms of this SASSA issue. That whatever we do must be constitutionally and legally unassailable. So that's why one of the first things that we decided was that the talks between SASSA and CPS must come to an end until such time that we have a legally sustainable way of doing so. As we know, that we work in accordance with the Constitution and the prescribed legislation, that when we procure goods and services, we must do so in terms of a competitive, transparent bidding process. So that is why this legal advice indicated that SASSA has to, first of all, get an approval in terms of deviation from that process in order, after that, to be able to enter into negotiations whichever way. So that's the part of the advice, that the context I wanted to respond. I've already indicated in my answer to the first question that the issue of responsibility will only come at a later stage when the ministerial task team has looked at all the issues surrounding this matter. On the issue of the institutionalization of the payment of grants as the state, these are some of the things that the ministerial task team is looking at this moment in time to ensure that the state as a state provides these services rather than outsourcing them to the private sector. So those recommendations will be made at an appropriate time. On the issue of figures, where we talk about figures, they are largely indicating the quota under review unless otherwise stated otherwise. And as I've said, the coordinating ministers of the clusters will be holding these media briefings from next week, coordinated by GCIS, to give more details of the milestones that have been reached. Our role as the timeframes are very urgent, because the most urgent task is to ensure that 1st of April these grants should be distributed. On the Commonwealth Games, I think Minister Mbalula highlighted very well this issue, that the main reason are financial constraints. As we understand it, what changed was not our commitment to hold the games, but the imposed extra guarantees and financial resources. That's what it became difficult for us to continue with the games. On the issue of the ministerial team led by Minister of Public Service, this is largely to coordinate government works to ensure that the issues that are indicated in the statements are done properly, and all those affected departments are part of the team to support the Minister of Public Service and Administration. On the issue of public service not doing not allowed to do work business with government, that still applies. That is why we are saying that those public servants who have not complied with that regulation, the Department of Public Service and Administration is compiling that information for possible action against them.
Thank you, Minister. Let me check if there are any follow-up questions. My colleague Lisa will also check that side. I have 4 hands here in Victoria. I'll come that side. You can maybe start here. I think you know the ground rule. You identify yourself and the house it will be you side, and then you do that order.
Afternoon, Minister. It's Sandra Masaro from the Jakarta FM. My question would be, the ANC Treasurer General yesterday was released and said that it would be good if the distribution of social grants were internalized by government. I was wondering if this discussion was held at a party level first, because you are saying that it's been a proposal now by cabinet. I'm just wondering if it was discussed beforehand at a party level before this cabinet meeting took place. And don't you think there should be repercussions to the Minister of Social Development for the disaster of the saga that is currently unfolding with the social grants? Shouldn't responsibility go side and side with the current constitutional court process that is going on right now? And lastly, the President of the country did say that there will be serious repercussions for those who are responsible for the saga. I was wondering if that was also discussed at the cabinet meeting. He even said that those who need to be fired will be fired. Thank you.
My name is Mutlangan again. Minister, I would like to know as to whether there is a concern from the cabinet that, every time you act based on the court rulings. I mean, the recent case of ICC, the government decision to withdraw from ICC, you had to suspend it to withdrawal based on the decision of the court. And now it's SASA. Are we governed by courts?
Minister Anton again from Pretoria FM. I also want another bite at the SASA issue. You said that you were waiting for the Constitutional Court judgment. Are you not concerned that it would be too little, too late, once the court gives its judgment? I mean, it's 15 days until the 1st of April. Will you have enough time as a ministerial task team to negotiate with CPS for National Treasury to sign off on whichever deal you come up with? Do you think that 15 days is enough for the ministerial task team to save this whole SASA issue? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Minister, and thank you for taking my question. It's Fernando from the UK. Minister, could you kindly explain the rationale behind separating the conduct of extend to the minister? Why is the minister a special case in this regard?
Thank you very much. We'll allow the minister to respond to your questions, and then we'll come to Cape Town.
Well, I think it's common cause that we have an act of parliament that created SASSA in 2004, and SASSA started operations in 2006 with the sole aim of distributing these social grants. So the issue of discussions of that has already been there. So the insourcing of these grants is a matter of paramount importance. That's why I said part of the immediate task of the ministerial task team is to look at this matter, depending what happens in terms of the judgment of the Constitutional Court today. So there are a lot of public entities that need to be brought to the party in our view, but as I've said, all those discussions are still happening within the ministerial task team. We have the post office, we have CETA, we have the CSR amongst others, just as a way of explaining. I've already answered the question of the issue of responsibility in this matter, that we will discuss that as a ministerial task team and also report to Cabinet, so that decisions have to be taken. And I think the President also indicated that this matter is being looked at a very serious light. So issues of consequent management, I think they do arise, because we cannot afford a situation of 17 million beneficiaries, the poor, the most vulnerable of society, not getting these grants. So we're going to be doing everything within our power as a task team to ensure that this is done. The second question, we are a constitutional democracy with the separation of powers and an independent judiciary which must be respected. So all their judgments, especially the Constitutional Court, they are binding, because the Constitutional Court is the apex court and the court of final resort. So there is no choice there. We have to comply. So we agree completely with the decisions of the Constitutional Court. On the issue of time, time is of essence, but we do believe, as Judge Froneman said in the 2014 judgment in this matter, that by SASSA outsourcing this to CPS has also become to be an organ of state for the purposes of distribution of social grant. So I believe that we have to do everything to ensure that it's done. On the issue of SASSA, SASSA is a creator of statutes, and the minister exercises executive authority over SASSA. So I thought I needed to mention that. So the difference is that there is operations by SASSA, and then the minister is the executive authority over SASSA.
Thank you. Let me get an indication from Cape Town Rizal.
Yes, we have 4 follow-up questions, starting with Janet. Thanks, Minister. I'd like to know, at the post-cabinet meeting yesterday, was there any, when you said that the matter did come up on SASSA, did some ministers support calls for the Minister of Social Development for action to be taken against her and for her to be held accountable, bearing in mind that she has had a number of years to comply with the Constitutional Court order and get things together? So the question really is, was there any call yesterday by ministers for action against the Radebe Plamini? Thanks.
Minister Wendell, sorry to belabor the SASSA matter and to ask the questions for the different guys. When you last responded, you suggested to a previous question that the executive authority over SASSA rests with the minister. Surely then, if that is the case, then she should, if the buck stops with her, she should be held liable for matters that have gone awry. So the question is, I suppose, is absolute incompetence a prerequisite for being in cabinet? I presume it is not. So if it is not the case, then surely absolute incompetence should be punished. So why is that not happening? And the second question, I think, is more important because in this entire episode, the Social Development Minister has not denied any, at one stage, she's not denied any allegations of impropriety on her side. She's not taken the public into confidence. Has she taken you and her colleagues at Cabinet into confidence? Has she, for example, said that I, Bakapili Dlamini, I swear on my mother's grave that I have not done anything wrong. I'm completely innocent. There is no notion of unlawful conduct with regards to my involvement with CPS. Has she done that? I mean, has she told you guys that? I mean, if you can please just assist us with this, please. And then lastly, please, Minister, the whole notion of this, is there a Chinese wall between the ruling party, ANC, and the executive of the government of the day? Because it seems as if the lines are murky and blurred. I mean, and as a result, good governance is not the order of the day. Okay.
There are more questions. I'm going to take a new hand, Paul, and then I'll come to you. Bianca.
Good afternoon, Minister. Bianca Caposorio from the Times. You mentioned repeatedly that the ministerial task team will only be looking at consequence management at the end of this process and looking at who should be held responsible. But one of the questions that has come up has been the role of the Minister, Bakapili Dlamini, who sits on that ministerial task team. Would it not be a conflict of interest?
Paul and Andesiro and then Linda.
Hi, Minister Paul Beckert from Bloomberg again, and again we're going to ask you on SASA. First of all, the Cabinet statement regretting, is that an acknowledgement that this is an apology and that the situation is government's own fault? Cabinet is a collective, as you often pointed out to us, so I suppose you're all taking the blame if it is government's own fault. And then secondly, yesterday the Social Development Committee was told by SASA, if I recall, that the Interministerial Task Team had also set up another team to negotiate with CPS. Have you actually started this task team, or this sub-team or negotiation team, and when will they start negotiating with CPS and Network? Thank you.
Andesiro?
Andesiro Matilana from City Press, Academy Minister. I don't know if you answered my question. I didn't hear you telling us whether Cabinet is treating this as a crisis. Is it a crisis or is it not? I think it's important to know whether the government, I mean, your view, if you think this is just made up by the media. I think it's important for you to set that record straight. And Minister, you know, when DGs are appointed, we learn through this process, the Cabinet briefings. So when Zain Dango was appointed as DG, we heard it from you in the post-Cabinet briefing. When he left, the Minister refused to entertain questions around his departure. Were you informed about the reasons why he left? Can you please let us know how or why he finished the position? Thank you.
Last one first, Linda.
Minister Linda Ento again. I just want to confirm that I heard correctly that you said that the task team had called a halt to the negotiations between SASA and the CPS, awaiting approval of a deviation. If that is correct, at what stage did you call a halt to the talks? Thanks.
That's it, Chair.
Thank you, Lisa. We will go to the Minister to respond.
I've explained that the issues around actions or whatever nature can only come after the processes have been completed. So I will not be able to say any other thing except what I've highlighted. On the issue of discussions in Cabinet, cabinets are confidential meetings of Cabinet. So what I'm going to be telling you is the decisions of Cabinet, not what colleague so-and-so said. But to answer your question directly, there was no such call at that meeting because, as I've said, the Ministerial Task Team will be looking at those matters in its detail and in its all complexity before we can be able to provide information and recommendations to Cabinet. The lines between government and the ANC, no, they have not been blurred. That is why there is a difference. Cabinet ministers are appointed by the President and they are accountable to the President. The ruling part or governing part or any part has a different structure altogether. There is no conflict of interest, the Minister of Social Development being part of the team, because we require all the information that we can get, and it is important that she is in this team so that we can have all the information. Our attitude, as I've said, is that of a caring government. The anxiety that has been expressed by almost every person in South Africa is an indication that this task team has to act in a manner to ensure that the 1st of April does not become a crisis when 70 million people will not be paid. So that's what we are trying to avert and to avoid. On the issue of the task team, we have also appointed as the Ministerial Task Team what we call a technical team that consists of senior officials in government, which is being chaired by the Secretary of National Planning and the Acting DG of DPME, Sidiso Matuna, that will consist also of senior leaders in National Treasury, Social Department, and all those government departments that are represented in the task team. The principal task there will be determined by the judgment of the Constitutional Court today, whenever it gives judgment, to ensure that there is a team that can be able to deal with this matter at a technical level. The former DG, Zain, I do not know why he resigned, but I'm sure he can be able to explain it. I only read it in the media, what he said in terms of his resignation. Yes, we did take a decision on our first meeting on Thursday, on the 9th of March, that the discussions between SASSA and CPS must come to an end, because we want things to happen in a constitutionally and legally unassailable way. As I've said, to repeat, that to work in government, we are guided by the Constitution and applicable legislation, and in this instance is the PFMA. So if you have to do things outside of that, you have to get a permission for deviation in terms of the Public Finance Management Act and Treasury instruction. If my memory serves me well, is 8.405. So I think I've tried to answer all the questions.
Colleagues, thank you very much. I think you can also see in the time that we've gone beyond the time that allocated, and I want to again thank you very much for coming, and thank the Minister for the time that you asked to interact with you on the positions of Cabinet. And colleagues in Cape Town, thank you very much also for always participating actively in this matter. On that note,